Hello gamers, it's SoftKitty99 and today we're back at the Unsatisfying Effect house, which is the one where I have my office space, and we're going to be working on the garden today. So I've already taken a look at it and I've cut all the grass and removed some of the plants, and I'm currently trying to decide whether to remove all of the trees or just some of them, and then see what else we can do with the space that we've got available for this garden. There's quite a lot of space at the two sides and the front. It's quite a narrow plot at the back, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that one. As you can see, I've added a few little bits of furniture, a bench and a picnic table, and the rest of it is still a clean blank slate. So I'm going to have a think about what we can do with this, play around with it, and then I will show you the final version of this garden once I've finished with it, and I'm going to build it for my own personal taste this time. And we're back with the finished garden at the Unsatisfying Effect, which is our base and our office space. And I've kind of gone for the country, floral, English country garden. The only piece of foliage that I've kept from the original garden is this great big beautiful tree, because there simply aren't any great big pretty trees that you can purchase to plant back into your garden, and I just think that this one looks particularly healthy and nice and just adds that splash of height into the garden itself. So along the front of the build we've added some of these pretty old style lantern lighting, and I've added flower beds, the raised ones, to just prettify up the very front of the house. So I've used this big round raised plot to add this splash of floral right at the front of the house here, and I've used these very floral sort of traditional flowers, especially things like the lilacs and the daisy style things and the marigolds. These are just very traditional sorts of English floral garden flowers, and I've used the same sort of flowers in our little raised beds along the front of the house. So there's the first one and there's the second one, and as with most country floral gardens, you just kind of higgledy-piggledy, lots of different colours and lots of plants all in together, and it's just kind of organic looking and very full and rich in colour and pattern and stuff. And then along here I've added 3 of these rock edged flower beds, and we've used the spring motif, so we've used the narcissi and daffodil and tulips. And I've always been quite partial to the black flowers, which are always quite rare to get, but I've always kind of liked them because they're unusual. So I've used all of this, and I've also added a few little crocuses, so we've got the very sort of spring feel to these beds. So that's the first one, there's the second one, and the third one. So we've just got all that floral along the run at the front of the house. Now I've added a little wishing well, and of course you've got to have the obligatory garden gnome, and we've used one of these little fake wells because very few houses have actual real wells, so we've used this as a planter with just another floral piece in it. And then we want to attract the birds to our garden, so we've got 2 different heights of bird table and 2 different heights of water pots for the birds, just to attract them into the garden, and then you can put different types of food on different ones to attract different types of birds. And then we've got a couple of bird boxes along the front of the house. We've also got another bird box at the side. I've used different styles of bird boxes because you have to have different types of bird boxes for different types of birds. So I've used the 3 different styles that we've got in the build, and we've also got a bat box there at the back of the build, and of course an obligatory pet for the household. And I've chosen a rabbit because as a kid I did have a pet rabbit for many years, and I was very fond of my pet rabbit, and it's a shame we can't actually have a real rabbit in the cage, so that would be quite a nice addition. Please people at House Litter, could we maybe have some pets to go along with it? I've added some seating, just a couple of bushes and a seat, so you can sit here and admire the birds come into your garden and maybe watch your rabbit. And then I've done the same at the opposite side. I've done a matching one right in this corner as well, where you can just sit and relax. And again we've got the bushes just to add that little bit of foliage to the build. So that is my front garden. And then I've always loved a traditional English rose garden, so I've built myself a little one right here. So if we come in through the archways, through here, I've added a couple of the little sculptures. We've got the owl at both sides here, and of course a fountain. Fountains are a great addition to any garden. And then we've got our traditional little rose garden, so we've got somewhere to sit, and then we've got this mass of beautiful roses in our bushes. So we've got bush roses, we've got tea roses, we've got tall roses, and we've just got this mass of foliage and blooms and colour, and it's just all together, and it's rich and it's lush and it's beautiful. And just for a little bit of variation, I've added some, are they hydrangeas or rhododendrons? I always get hydrangeas and rhododendrons mixed up. But I've got the big tall one over here, and then a small miniature version over here. So we've got one plant that isn't a rose in each of the 4 beds. So there's our first bed, and then that there is the hydrangea or rhododendron right at the back, and then we've got loads of roses all around. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different rose bushes in each of the beds. So we've got 2 tall ones, one of the tall thin teas, and the little hybrids and things. So we've done that in each of the beds. So over here we've got the plant at the back, and then we've got all the flowers around the front, all the roses. I just think it's a beautiful, splendid show of colour and foliage. And we've got the lilac at the back. You've got to have a lilac in a traditional garden, absolutely got to. And then we've got all of the beautiful roses. I really like that red there in this particular bush here. I think that's a lovely shade of red. And then again we've got another splash of beautiful rose colour over here, and I'm really pleased with how this has turned up. So let me come to the corner here. So we've used this fencing along the sides. In a lot of traditional rose gardens you have the sort of foliage hedges around the edge, but they're usually quite low down, almost like a small herb garden type of box hedge that's used. We don't have that in this, so I've chosen to use the pretty white fencing instead, and that of course is why we've got the white seat in the middle here. And I've made it into a cross shape, so you've got space to walk in to be able to get to the roses. Because of course you've got to often spray roses for aphids because they're quite susceptible. So you do have to be a bit careful with roses, but I absolutely love the way that this garden's turned out, and I'd love to have a garden like that of my own, to be honest. The problem with roses is there's so much work, and it's really hard to keep them looking this lush and beautiful. So I'm very pleased with the way that this rose garden has turned out. So let's continue through our pathing here. Oh, you have to open both to get through. I've got some stepping stones, again quite a traditional thing for a English higgledy-piggledy garden, and I've built in a pavilion here with some seating for little gatherings, and so you can enjoy the garden if it rains as well, because you'd be nicely secure under here. And I've used lots of little tubs around the side so that you can change the foliage in these depending on the season, so that you can always have something nice in here. So we've got like hostas and allium type plants in the big round planters, and then I've gone for the daffodils and narcissi again in the smaller round ones. And I've used lots of different colours of all these plants, and then we've added the that's Japanese, isn't it? And then some foliage around the edge. This nice splash of colour just adds a little bit something else, as well with all the colour around here. Any different seasons, of course, you'd have different colours. We've got the springy style ones here, so it's paler colours, but you'll go into brighter colours in summer and change it as you go. So we've got the Japanese maple, a small one here, and then the big one over there. And then I did actually keep an extra couple of the old trees. I kept a couple of these little birchy trees because I love that white sort of style of bark. That looks quite good, and there isn't one, I don't think, in the ones you can buy. That's the closest with that white bark there, so you can see the difference. So I did keep a couple of extra ones, and then we've added quite a lot of foliage down the corner around here, look, to layer things up and just make it look rich and beautiful again down this side. So you can just see how I've built it up with different sizes and layers, and just fit different things in a different layering to add tiered effects across the foliage. And I think it's turned out really well, and I think from here inside the pavilion it looks really cool. So if you go slowly around, you can see it. I think it just looks really good. And then you can look out down the back there, and you can look out over the rose garden from here. I think that's an absolutely beautiful view in both directions. Now I've kept it fairly simple down the back. I've added a seating area with a table here. I did move out the patio that we had on here, and sadly the space doesn't quite fit with the paving slabs that we've got, so bear in mind that if you do want to change the flooring in these patio areas, the ones that we've got quite often don't quite fit into it, so do be careful in your choice of whether to remove that to put in new ones. So I've done the best that I could with it, but it isn't perfect. But I do quite like the little bit of seating here, and over there we've added one of the pergola style seating areas and one of the picnic benches underneath it. And you could have ivy and vines and things growing over a pergola, but I couldn't figure out how to do that in game. The vines and things that we do have, I can only get to fit on the fence. I couldn't get them to attach to the sides of the pergola, which is kind of odd because pergolas are usually used for climbing roses and climbing vines, and I would have liked to attach it to that. So we've added like a little touch of Amsterdam into this back garden because I've used lots and lots of tulips, and I've used this decorative windmill just because I really wanted to use the windmill in some way. And so this is what I've come up with, a couple of little raised beds with lots of different styles and sizes of tulips, some vines at the back to add a lot of extra greenery to it, and then the windmill just for that touch of something a little bit different. So that is the garden that I built for my office house, and I hope that you enjoyed the tour around here, and I hope that it's given you some ideas for your own gardens. And I just really enjoyed playing with everything and having fun with it. So hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. From SoftKitty99, goodbye and happy gaming!